Hello students, welcome in the next class. Today we will continue our previous chapter, that is surface chemistry. Today we will cover the part catalyst and we will start colloids. Colloids required at least two classes. So introductory part we will discuss today and the remaining part we will discuss tomorrow. So the first topic of the today is catalyst. You all know catalyst for a number of years, a substance which increase the rate of reaction. Now here few more points which you need to prepare in class 12th. The first is, now catalysts are divided in two classes. One is homogeneous catalyst and second is heterogeneous catalyst. It is a very simple classification. When the physical state of reactants and catalyst is same, here you can see these are the reactant sulfur dioxide and oxygen, both are in gaseous state, and the catalyst is nitric oxide NO. This is also a gas. So when physical state of reactant and catalyst is same, then it is known as homogeneous catalyst. But if the physical state of reactant and catalyst different, then it is known as heterogeneous catalyst. Here nitrogen and hydrogen are gases, but iron, which is catalyst, is solid. So if the physical state of catalyst is different than the physical state of reactants, it is known as heterogeneous catalyst. Now in class 12th you will come to know how a catalyst increase the rate of reaction. There are a number of theories which can help us to understand this particular question. Out of these two, homogeneous and heterogeneous, the heterogeneous catalytic process depends on surface phenomena. It depends on surface chemistry, surface property, and therefore only this particular is part of this chapter. I repeat, only the heterogeneous catalytic process depend on phenomena or properties of surface. Therefore this is the included in this part. Homogeneous catalyst doesn't depend on surface properties. So this is the only part of this chapter. How it increase the rate of reaction? A simple theory is given here. Let this is a catalyst, A and B. These are reactant. The catalyst first adsorb reactants on its surface. You can see here it has adsorbed A particle as well as B particles over its surface. After A and B get adsorbed, they undergo chemical reactions and they form chemical bond. Like here you can see earlier there is no bond between A and B, but there is bond between A and B now. So after formation of bond, you can say now they are reactants and this is now product. I repeat, first reactants get adsorbed. After adsorption they interact with each other and form chemical bond. You can consider this as product. And finally the product leave the surface of catalyst and catalyst is available for other chemical reaction. This process can be considered as desorption, as we all know. So there are two phenomena involved in heterogeneous catalysis. First step is adsorption and then last step is desorption. Now you may ask, what is role of desorption in heterogeneous catalytic process? This is a very important question. What role does desorption play in heterogeneous catalytic process? The answer is, due to desorption the product leave the surface of catalyst and catalyst is available to catalyze next reactant particles. If desorption is not takes place, then catalyst will consume in the reaction and it will be not available for other reactants. Another point is this adsorption of reactant, should be it very strong or it should be very weak? Then answer is it should be of moderate strength, because if the adsorption is very strong then desorption is not possible, and if the adsorption is very weak it may possible. Both A and B can leave the surface of catalyst without reacting with each other. It means before formation of product it may possible that reactants leave the surface of catalyst and the reaction is not possible. So the adsorption should be of moderate strength for good yield of product for better result. Now, some properties of catalyst you need to prepare here. The first property of catalyst is activity. Activity means it is ability of a catalyst to increase rate of reaction. You have to remember that a catalyst can increase the rate of reaction up to 10 raised power 10 time. It depends on number of other factors, like it depends on nature of reaction, it depends on certain other conditions of reaction. But in general, you can say a catalyst can increase the rate of reaction up to 10 raised power 10 time. So activity means it is ability of catalyst to increase rate of reaction. Another property of catalyst, it is selectivity. Now selectivity is a very important properties of a catalyst. So far you know that catalyst increase rate of reaction, but after this property you will remember that catalyst also decide the nature of product. Simply catalyst decide the type of product. For example, you can see here carbon monoxide and hydrogen. They are reactant for a reaction. If we use nickel as catalyst, then the product is methane. But if we use copper as catalyst, the product is alcohol. So we started with same reactant, but the products are different. It is methane in first reaction, it is methanol in second reaction. So in presence of different catalyst, we get different product. This particular property of catalyst to direct chemical reaction in order to get certain specific product is known as selectivity. So catalysts not only increase the rate of reaction, but sometimes it decide the type of product also, and this particular property is known as selectivity. So this small part you need to prepare in this chapter, surface chemistry. I repeat, only heterogeneous catalytic process depends on surface phenomena. It depends on surface properties. Homogeneous catalyst you will discuss in some other chapters. Now the next part of the chapter, it is colloids. In class 9th you had a brief discussion, brief knowledge about colloids. In 9th class we have discussed that mixtures can be divided in two classes. One is homogeneous mixture and other is heterogeneous mixture. Homogeneous mixture is also known as solution or true solution, and heterogeneous can be divided further in two categories. One is colloid and second is suspension or precipitate. So overall we have three type of substance. Now this is true solution, colloid and suspension. The basic difference between these three type of mixture is size of particles. Whenever size of particles is less than 1 nanometer, then it is considered as true solution. If the size of particle is more than 1000 nanometer, these are big enough particles to be seen by naked eyes. If the size of particle is more than 1000 nanometer, it is considered as suspension or precipitate. Now here less than 1 nanometer, here more than 1000 nanometer. If the particle size is in between 1 to 1000 nanometer, then it is considered as colloid. So this is the part of our syllabus. True solution and suspension we just remember as comparison with colloid, but the main part of the chapter is colloid. So first difference, size of particles. There are some more differences which you have studied in lower classes and they just required for general knowledge. Like out of these three particles, because these particles are big enough, they can be seen by naked eyes as well as they can be seen by microscope. So if a particle can be seen by eyes, then definitely it can be seen by microscope also. These particles are very tiny particles and therefore you can't see them by naked eyes as well as by microscope. Now these particles in between the size of other two, so these particles can be seen by microscope only. You can't see particles by naked eyes, but you can see these particles by microscope. Another property, it is settling down. These particle precipitate, you have seen in the experiment in lower classes that precipitate, particles of precipitate can be settled down because they are big enough and they can have appreciable gravitational force. So these particles can easily settle down. These particles of true solution, because they are very small particle, they never get settled down. What about colloids? Colloidal particle, the best example of colloid which we can remember as milk. You have observed that the particles of milk also not settle down, but they can induced to be settled down under ultracentrifugation. So in normal condition, they doesn't settle down, but on ultracentrifugation, the particles can be settled down in case they are colloid. What is meaning of ultracentrifugation here? Centrifugation is rotation of particle at high speed, and ultra means it is high efficiency. Whenever you use high efficient process, then we can use a term ultra. So if you rotate at very high speed, then it is the centrifugation is known as ultracentrifugation. Third is filtration. You have observed in class 11 practicals that, and as well as in class 9 10th also, that particles of precipitate, they are big enough and they can be easily separated with the help of normal filter paper, because the pore size is smaller and the particles are big. So you can separate this particle by normal filter paper. Here the particles are very small particles and you cannot filter them by any kind of filter paper. Once again, colloidal particles are in between as compared on the basis of their size. So these particles, colloidal particles, cannot be separated by normal filter paper, but they can be filtered by animal cell membrane, parchment paper, or cellophane membrane. The pore size here in animal cell membrane, parchment paper, or cellophane membrane are smaller as compared to size of colloidal particles, and therefore these particles cannot pass through this pore, and you can separate them with the help of this. So these are three basic differences between colloids, precipitate, and true solution, which you have already prepared in class 9th. Here it is a revision for you. One important question: colloid is not a substance, but it is state of a substance. What do you meaning by this? What do you understand by this? A good question which is given in NCERT also. Explain that colloid is not a substance, but it is a state of substance. The meaning is, here look at here one example: soap in water. Now when you mix soap and water, it form a colloid. But when soap is mixed with organic solvent like benzene, carbon tetrachloride, etc., then it form a true solution. True solution is also known as crystalloid. I repeat, when you dissolve soap in water, it form colloid. But when you mix soap in an organic solvent, it form true solution. It means you can't say that soap is example of colloid, but you can say soap in water is example of a colloid. I repeat, because soap in water is colloid, soap in organic solvent is true solution. So soap cannot be example of colloid, but soap in water is an example of colloid. So colloid is not a substance, but it is a state of substance. Now there are two terms used in for the mixture of colloid. Remember, colloid, true solutions, and suspension, they all are mixtures. Just like a solution has two components, solute and solvent. Here we use two terms as dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Dispersed phase is just like solute, and dispersion medium, it is a replacement of solvent. How can we define? dispersed phase, it means they are replacement of solute particles. You can say these are the particles in a heterogeneous system having dimensions in between 1 to 1000 nanometer. I repeat, these are the particles of heterogeneous system having dimensions in between 1 to 1000 nanometer. They are known as dispersed phase. Dispersion medium, these are the particles in which dispersed phase or particles of 1 to 1000 nanometer get dispersed. So it is replacement of solvent and it is replacement of solute. Three important part in colloids. One, its classification. Second, its preparation. And third, its properties. So today we will complete up to classification. In next two classes we will able to complete this chapter with preparation of colloids and properties of colloid. So uh, today we will complete classification. So just look at here, how can we classify colloids? There are three important classifications of colloid. The first is based on physical state of dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Now, before further study, you should able to remember what is meaning of dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Dispersion medium means it is just like solvent. Dispersed phase means just like solute particle. So be familiar with this term, then only you will able to understand the classification of colloid. So classification first based on physical state of solute and solvent, it means dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Second, nature of dispersed phase, and third, it is interaction between dispersed phase and dispersion medium. First, a simple classification based on physical state. Now, just like solute and solvent can be solid, liquid, gas, here also dispersed phase and dispersion medium can be solid, liquid and gas. So here you can see when dispersed phase is solid, liquid, gas, I take here dispersion medium as solid, solid, solid. Then it is solid, liquid, gas, it is liquid, liquid, liquid. Then it is solid, liquid, gas, it is gas, gas, gas. Now remember that gas in gas is always a homogeneous mixture. Gas in gas cannot be a heterogeneous mixture, and therefore we do not have any example of colloid in which gas is dispersed phase and gas is dispersion medium. So this type of colloid is not possible. Rest 8 combinations are possible. You need to remember one example of each type of combination. In last 2-3 years, it has been observed that CBSE asked 1 mark question that give an example of colloid in which dispersed phase is solid and dispersion medium is liquid and etc. So you need to remember one example of each. It is given in notes as well as in NCERT book also. So this is first classification. I repeat, based on physical state. In 8 combinations are possible. The ninth one is not possible, as two gases always form homogeneous mixture. Second classification on the basis of nature of dispersed phase. If you prepared so far that dispersed phase means it is solute particles. So on the basis of nature of dispersed phase, on the basis of nature of solute particles, the colloids can be divided in 3 categories. One is multimolecular colloid, second is macromolecular colloid, and third is associate colloid. One by one we will discuss here. Multimolecular, as the name says, multi means it is many. In multimolecular colloid, a great number of small particles having size less than 1 nanometer aggregate and form bigger particles of colloidal dimension. I repeat, smaller particles associate and form big particles of colloidal dimension. Such type of colloid is known as multimolecular colloid. For example, a colloidal soul of gold, a colloidal soul of ferric hydroxide. We will explain later on what is meaning of SOL. It's not short form of solution. It is a complete term, SOL, SOL. We'll discuss later on. Now, whenever you have any colloid for which you can write such type of chemical formula, either its symbol of element or molecular formula, it is always an example of multimolecular colloid. As we know that individual particles are very small particles, so if it is a colloid, then the particle must aggregate to form big enough so that they have dimensions in between 1 to 1000 nanometer. So multimolecular particles aggregate to form bigger particles. Second is macromolecular. Macro means big. So here particles are big enough to have this dimension 1 to 1000 nanometer. Here particles are so big that they are not required to have any kind of association. And big particle means they must be particles of polymer. It may be colloidal sol of starch, colloidal sol of protein, or colloidal sol of any other polymer. The third is associate colloid. Now, multimolecular means particles aggregate. Associate means again particles aggregate. But a difference between multimolecular and associate is here at low concentration it behave like true solution. It means association is not possible at low concentration, but over certain minimum concentration particles associate, just like here they associated, here also they associate, but this association is possible only over certain minimum concentration. This certain minimum concentration required for association is known as CMC, critical micelle concentration. Here the bigger particles which are formed after association are known as micelle. You have studied in the topic of soap in class 10th, micelle, formation of micelle. So bigger particles are known as micelle. Formation of micelle is known as micellization, and formation of micelle required minimum concentration. This minimum concentration is known as CMC, critical micelle concentration. The best example of associate colloid is soap in water. I repeat, at low concentration they behave like true solution. Over certain minimum concentration, which is also known as CMC, critical micelle concentration, particles associate and form micelle or colloids. Craft temperature, one more point here. Craft temperature, it is the minimum temperature required for formation of micelle. So one more question you may have, what is Craft temperature? It is the minimum temperature required for formation of micelle. Now third classification, it is on the basis of interaction between disperse phase and dispersion medium. It means how the solute and solvent, it means disperse phase and dispersion medium, reacted or have interaction between each other. Two type of colloids on the basis of interaction. They may like each other, they may not like each other. That's why only two possibilities here. One is lyophilic or hydrophilic, and the second one is lyophobic or hydrophobic. Phobic means repelling, philic means affecting. So they have great affinity between disperse phase and dispersion medium. They do not have affinity, or they have less affinity between disperse phase and dispersion medium. If dispersion medium is water, then we use term hydro. Otherwise, if we have dispersion medium other than water, then we use lyophobic. Same here, hydro means dispersion medium is water, lyo means dispersion medium may be water or maybe some other liquid also. So philic means they have great affinity, and phobic means they have less affinity between disperse phase and dispersion medium. You can see 6 differences between lyophilic and lyophobic, and they all are because of this very first. They have great affinity and they have less affinity. Because they have great affinity between solute and solvent, it means disperse phase and dispersion medium, they are stable. Because there is affinity, they are stable. Because they are less affinity between, they have less affinity, they are unstable. As they are stable, they do not require any stabilizers. But because they are unstable, they require some chemicals as stabilizers. How this chemical stabilize them, we will discuss under the heading of preparation of colloid. But to prepare such type of colloid, we need to add some chemicals which act as stabilizers. Because they are stable, they can prepared by direct method. Direct method means if you need to prepare a colloid of starch, if you need to prepare a colloidal sol of starch in water, you can start the reaction with starch and water. So the aim is to prepare a colloid of starch in water, and the reactants are starch and water, same reactant which we required as product. But they can be prepared by indirect method. Now indirect method means, here you can see we need to prepare a colloid of ferric hydroxide, and for this we are starting with ferric chloride. This is meaning of indirect method. Why indirect method? Because they have less affinity. Why direct method? Because they have great affinity. It is reversible. Reversible means, suppose you prepared a colloid, and after preparation of colloid you separated disperse phase and dispersion medium by a certain method. If you remix them, they once again convert into colloid, and this means reversible. But here if you separated disperse phase and dispersion medium, then you cannot regain the colloid by a simple mixing. That is why they are known as irreversible. They can't coagulated easily. Coagulation means precipitation. Precipitation means the colloidal particle further collapse with each other, aggregate with each other, and convert into precipitate. The property is known as precipitation or coagulation. Because they are stable, they cannot coagulate easily, but because they are unstable, they easily collapse, they easily aggregate, and they easily convert into precipitate, which is also known as coagulation. So these are the differences between lyophilic and lyophobic. A good question, one and a half mark question. Write 3 differences between lyophilic and lyophobic colloid. Now few more points which we need to prepare here. There are 3 terms used in colloid. One is sol, other is gel, and third is emulsion. Now these are used in day-to-day life also. I hope you have heard jelly or gel. At least you have heard about hair gel. So this is gel. Emulsion, if you see any cough syrup or any syrup, you will see this term emulsion over the syrup. And sol, if you use Dior, any other fog or any other Dio, then you will see this is printed on the can which says aerosol. What is meaning of this sol? So we will learn here what is meaning of sol, what is meaning of gel, and what is meaning of emulsion. I am starting with emulsion because it is the most easiest term to remember. Whenever disperse phase and dispersion medium both are in liquid state, if both disperse phase and dispersion medium are liquid, then we consider colloid as emulsion. You can't say what is the difference between colloid and emulsion, because emulsion is one of the type of colloid, gel is one of the type of colloid, sol is one of the type of colloid. Emulsion, when physical state of both disperse phase and dispersion medium is same. Come to next, sol. Whenever a colloid can flow like liquid or solid, whenever a colloid can flow, then it is considered as sol. So a colloid which can flow, in which conditions colloid can flow? 2 conditions: if dispersion medium is either gas or dispersion medium is liquid. So either dispersion medium is gas or dispersion medium is liquid, a colloid can flow, and that is considered as sol. Sols can further be classified as hydrosol, aerosol, benzosol. Hydrosol means when the colloid has dispersion medium is water, when dispersion medium is air, when dispersion medium is benzene. So if a colloid can flow, it is sol. If both disperse phase and dispersion medium liquid, then it is emulsion. Now the last point here, it is gel. You have seen gel, hair gel, even your toothpaste is also gel. Gel means it cannot change its shape by its own, but when you implement some pressure, it can easily change its shape. So what happens in gel? Here you can understand by this example. Here dispersion medium, this is in solid state and dispersed phase in liquid state. Dispersion medium form a loose network. Solid particles form a network in which they acquire liquid in it. So from outer side it is solid, from inner side it has liquid. Such type of colloids are considered as gel. It is just like in a balloon you fill some water. The resultant is just like gel. It cannot change its shape by own, but when you implement pressure, it can change its shape because inside we have liquid, outer side it is solid. One good question: what is butter? Is it emulsion or gel? To have better understanding about gel, emulsion or sol, you can say, what is butter? Is it emulsion or gel, or it is sol? Then answer is, in summer it is emulsion as well as sol, because in summer temperature is quite high, butter in liquid state, so it can flow, it is sol. Both dispersed phase and dispersion medium liquid, it is emulsion. But in winter season it is gel, because in winter season we know the temperature is quite low and butter exists in solid state. So in winter season butter is gel, but in summer season it is emulsion as well as sol. So thank you for watching this video and wait for next video for surface chemistry. Till then, bye bye.